just so deeply object to a lot of what you're saying, but at the root, I feel like there's a clear misunderstanding about the core values of feminism. You're saying that it's bitter women, or that it's not allowing men to be men anymore, or demonizing masculinity. I really don't agree with. I don't think there's any value in kind of glorifying toxic masculinity that we have now, with making it seem as though being a violent man or anything like that is appropriate. I think it's really damaging.
Would you be able to phrase it as a question? Sorry for the panel.
Oh, okay.
I can say a couple of things back and we can have a discussion about this. So first and foremost, you started by saying, I feel like. It's really important that we know what you think like, because a big problem is that people are thinking, are feeling, and they're not really thinking anymore. Secondly, you brought up toxic masculinity. I believe toxic masculinity exists, but it exists inside of radicalized feminists, right? Where they're thinking that they should be able to own and control society because they're marching in the street with pussy hats and saying that they demand justice for a free and fair election, like they did with Donald J. Trump. I don't like this trend where we're trying to turn men, and you call it this. Masculinity is masculinity. I like masculinity. Masculinity is actually the one thing that saved me in life. I was grateful to have my grandfather, who was the strongest example of what it means to be a man, right? And because of that, having that structure, it actually saved me because he taught me personal responsibility. He taught me to have a relationship with God, right? And yes, he's a man's man. He did everything with his hands. He worked on a sharecropping farm from the time he was 5 years old. Today, that archetype of what a man is being taught that there's something wrong with it, that there's something that's implicitly violent about being a man, and that's wrong. And I think the people that are harmed the most by it, by the way, are women.
What you say about having a strong grandfather, a male figure, if you're saying that you've internalized these things, these messages that he taught you, then surely there's nothing inherently masculine about those qualities. I mean, I don't understand how you're defining masculinity.
I don't understand how you're defining it.
Yeah, why
don't you define it?
Why don't you define it?
Because you're the one that thinks, so you should define what masculinity means to you.
Well, I mean, it depends. I would say masculinity now, obviously just being a social construct, literally nothing more than a set of expectations that are placed on someone.
You're such a perfect reason for why I could never be a feminist, because everything that I just couldn't. It's like, you don't really know why you're calling it toxic. You did the exact same thing, but you decided that when men interrupt, it's because you're a woman. But you decided that when you interrupt, it's just because you had a differing opinion.
You asked me for one example.
I know. And then you say stuff about the marriage and breakdown as an emotional labor. There are women, just so you know, that aspire to get married and have children and stay at home and raise good children. And that's okay. So, but why are you now making it seem like that puts us in a position that's less than man? Want to create a society? Be the person that raises every individual that's in society. Feminism has made it seem like there's something wrong with being a mother, that there's something wrong with being a wife. And everything that you just said is that. You have. It's not emotional labor. I want to have children. I want to raise my children. I don't want to be the CEO of a company and not have a husband. And that's not what I aspire to. And that's why feminism is having a hard time with a lot of women who are realizing that when they give up everything that they naturally want in life to be a feminist, they end up miserable and alone. Why I don't like feminism is because feminists think feminism is mandatory. The second you find out that a girl doesn't identify as a feminist, you're up here and you're asking a bunch of questions. I don't like the feminist movement. I think it's become very toxic and very hostile towards men. If you believed in the equality that men and that women should be able to think whatever we wanted, you wouldn't be debating me right now. You'd say, well, more power to you, because you'd be a true feminist. But you're not. You're trying to...
belittling other women.
I'm not belittling them. You're allowed to be a feminist. I'm not telling you you can be a feminist. You could buy a pussy hat if you left today, and I wouldn't mind. I've never had an issue with people that are feminists. I have an issue when people tell me that I now have to be a feminist, or that it's complete bullshit when I say that I think it's harmful to keep telling men that masculinity is wrong. Masculinity is a component of being a man. I think a society needs and thrives on strong men. There's never been a society without strong men. There's never been a society without strong men. And because I support that, you're upset and you're calling bullshit. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with strong men? Why does that make you upset?
I just think that the values, you referenced the Gillette advert. All it was saying was, the message was fundamentally just stop being violent.
What about all the good? What about all the good things? Everything that we have in society, every war that was fought and won was because of men. Do you ever think about that?
necessary anyway. I mean, wars
But they
that we
happen,
fought
though.
and
Now
Now
we're
won.
spiraling. Now we're
and
spiraling.
But they happen
won
and then
that.
fought in them.
So what they won was that they started unnecessarily.
Do you
Yeah, that's
think
an
women can
awful
have done
example.
anything wrong, or that women can do anything wrong? Like, would you have been okay if there was like a strict razor commercial, like about toxic femininity? Would that have been okay with you?
Tell me what you think toxic femininity
Accusing
is.
men of things that never happen and
Yeah.
calling it sexual
Like
assault.
what?
Like Brett Kavanaugh.
I mean, what do you want me to say? Like a
Like a
statistic?
fact.
Yeah.
Any fact.
Because now this is why I don't support feminism, by the way. Because do you believe in the concept that women should just be believed absent facts? Because that was the Christine Blasey Ford thing. There was not a single fact. Do you think that women should be believed absent facts if they say that they were raped and assaulted?
Not without fact, but I think there should be a culture of belief. If someone comes forward and says, a man or a woman comes forward and says something has happened to them, that they should be given the time to be heard and to
She
speak
was
of
heard.
their experience.
This was a con job to try to displace United States
It
Supreme
was a
Court
political
justice.
hit job. It really was. But I do want to say this to you, and something for you to just consider, because I think we should wrap this up, because I don't think you're ever going to not be a feminist, and I'm never going to be one, right? But it's really important when you start getting into that slippery slope of believe women, and I talk about this particularly to Minority America, because we've learned our lesson the hardest with this, and I think radicalized feminism, when I did an interview, I said it was the closest thing to white supremacy I've ever seen is radicalized feminism. The concept of just believing a woman because she said something is the direct thing that led to all of our ancestors getting lynched in America. When white women would just say that something happened, okay, and we were supposed to magically believe it. Our ancestors were then chased after, put into cars, Emmett Till, everything that happened in America happened because white women should just be believed. So you will never, ever, ever hear me stand behind a radicalized concept like just believe women because they're crying. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us today.
Thank you.
Would you like to?